improvements to the added right turn lane and then the left turn at 29th, compared to 2.8 million for complete reconstruct, is a significant amount for over $2 million of difference that we could save by doing this now and postpone doing full reconstruct for a couple of decades. Financial considerations that we have in place now, in the adopted 2018-2027 CIP, we have $300,000 programmed in for 2018 and $2.5 million for 2022. So the project isn't funded until 2022. The total cost to complete the partial intersection is approximately $750,000. We'd like to move forward with getting the final design for the partial improvements and get right-of-way acquisitions if we need to do any of those. That should be very minimalistic, if any, and then get set up for engineering budget as well. So we have the design complete here by the end of 2019, and have a construction-ready project for as soon as funding becomes available, which would be 2022 unless things change. Our recommendation is that we approve the design concept for partial upgrade of the 29th North Maze Road intersection. Questions?
Do you know what the car counts are?
We do have that. I have a slide here that I can show you here just a little bit. It's kind of forward a couple of them here. We did some which one? The car counts? Which move? We did some traffic counts in several different years and compared them to what Baltimore took their own. And recently here in 2019, this shows some of our traffic counts. If you have specific questions, I can read it to you. It's really difficult to tell, but we range for close to 350 left turns in a peak hour on the 29th Street, and then close to 600 northbound movements through, and then 275 right turns in the peak hour.
James?
Yes.
Tell me why we should pay for engineering now. It's not going to be funded until 2022.
If we go through with
why would we not wait until just pay for the engineering 2 years from now?
The engineering part is what we do in order to review the project and go over plans.
I understand.
So not the construction side of things, but the
why should we pay for the engineering now?
I can answer some of that.
Yeah, Sean's gonna help me out here. He's a little bit
I'm
better.
trying to answer some of your questions, I guess. Part of it is there could be some utility relocation associated with this. So we just don't go out and build a project and design a project and go. If you look at 13th Street South here, you saw all the utilities that could be relocated with that project. So you have to have a set of plans to at least a field check set, which is about 50% design, before you can actually have the utilities start designing anything that they're going to relocate. There are public utilities, Westar, Cox, AT&T, Kansas Gas, Black Hills, all those that are going to have to potentially relocate. This one should be minimal. We don't think there's a whole lot. But the AT&T duct, if you have to redo some of it can take 6 to 8 months just for them to actually do work, and they have to design it for them. So you have to take some of that into consideration too. And what we're actually hoping to do is, if we can find some money in the CIP, is to move up their construction. We can't promise you that's going to happen, but that is our idea, and that's part of the reason we're looking at the more simple approach to this project.
Yeah, so if we can get it designed this year for $750,000 total project, instead of the $2.5 million in 2022, and we can move it up, we can get it done a lot quicker because it's designed, it's shovel ready, and we can save $2 million.
And then you can take what money was in 2022 and apply it to different projects.
If we don't have some of the engineering now, we can't review the plans. We don't have anybody set aside for reviewing the plans. So that's part of what that is being able to manage and see how the project moves forward.
Let me ask you another question.
Sure.
If that area keeps developing at the pace it is, and you say, whoa, 5 years, we need a full redo of the whole intersection. Somebody would say, why did you spend 750 when you should just have redone the whole thing in 2022?
So I'm gonna, go ahead. Tim's probably our best.
He was just dying to get to the podium.
Was he?
Yeah.
Here's up thing.
Okay, again, I'm Jimmy with Boston Company, I did all of the traffic analysis out here. We started this whole process with the idea of going in there with dual lefts in both east and west directions. The number, you see 355, 324 lefts. It doesn't show it on here, but the lefts coming the other direction in the AM peak are over 200 also, and that's people making a left and taking their kids up to school at Mays and dropping them off in the mornings. We focused on the PM rather than the AM for this graphic because the numbers are higher, but both of these really warrant dual lefts, and I use that term warrant really loosely. 200 left during the peak hour is when you should start looking at possibly installing dual lefts. What we found when we got into the actual traffic analysis was there are so few throughs heading eastbound across the intersection that half the left turns now are going left after the through traffic clears during what's called the permissive phase. So there's the protected movement when there's an arrow and they can just go freely. But then when you get the green ball, it's called the permissive phase. Then all the through has already gone through. Those lefts just pour on out. And this operates more efficiently now with a protected permissive phasing. When we put it and modeled it as a dual left, yeah, you're running twice as many cars all at once, but you're only doing it during the protected phase. And then the rest of those lefts that didn't get taken care of have to sit there for a whole cycle. So rather than putting in dual lefts now, which could solve part of the problem, but it would be less efficient than what we're doing now, we started with the idea that, okay, what if we just extended that left turn lane and kept the protected permissive phasing? How long would that work? And that's the slide that James threw up with all the economic development, different colors on different lots. All the development that we project to happen in the next 15 to 20 years. Once we did traffic generation based on all of those different land uses and distributed that on the road network, we saw that this would last as long as everything develops close to what we think, and we were pretty conservative with our numbers, I think. This would last at least 10 or 15 years, and we would be able to build this hopefully within a year instead of waiting until 2022 to rebuild the whole intersection. So we thought that this was a better solution just because you're solving the problem far sooner than you had programmed in your budget for $2.5 million, and it should last you 10 to 15 years up the road. Mays Road was just improved, and 29th was just improved 10 years ago. We did the design on both east and west of Mays Road on 29th. And when we did that, we shaved the shoulders off of Mays Road out of the left turn lane and then built and overlaid the whole thing out there. So most was relatively new pavement. But if we can get this right and left turn lane in there to solve the problem now, that's how we got to this design.
I guess my point is, when you designed those roads 10 years ago, if your projections would have been correct about the traffic counts, you would have designed it with an additional turn lane, or longer turn lanes, right?
Well,
If you would have known it developed this fast, you would have put, they would have stacked up further, so more people could turn.
yeah.
So I'm saying, what if that happens again, where it develops a lot faster than you project?
Then maybe this only lasts 10 years instead of 20. But at that point, we would have still solved this in the interim instead of waiting until 2022 to even start full reconstruction.
Pay for this money.
Well, maybe
Yeah.
now, but at the end, you have to spend 2.5 or whatever,
I mean,
then you just blew at 700. You didn't have to blow.
No, I appreciate your question. I
Well,
appreciate that.
At the very minimum, that box culvert, that right is gonna have to get done, whether you do it now or 2022.
Right.
So that investment's still gonna be captured.
Yeah, this isn't just throwaway,
Right.
750. It's not like we're gonna go and just tear it out and start all over. I mean, it's,
You're gonna have some infrastructure in place that you're gonna be able to reuse. Or you're gonna have to pay for it later.
Anyway, okay. Thank you. Any other questions?
I just hope that we can find men to get it accomplished.
I think Brian.
Because it's not fun in December.
Yeah, we noticed it really strongly during the
Yeah.
heavy retail season
Oh,
because of Newmarket. And then obviously with the construction that's happening right now on that corner, they're putting in roads for the commercial development. I'm afraid that they're going to use it as shortcuts to bypass the corner. And that's not going to help those businesses out at all. That creates more problems. So, obviously I want to try and get it done as soon as possible, but it's a big capital improvement budget.
I'll put in my little reminder or plug, whatever you want to call it, that, while we're building this right turn lane up at the 29th intersection, we've got an additional third right lane from southbound to northbound on Mays that ends at Sterling. And I think that would alleviate some congestion that happens in the Newmarket area if that could continue all the way up. I know there's land, there's utilities, there's a lot of other things that are involved in this. But as we're building that right turn lane up at 29th, to me, I think if we can forward think and a little bit of what JB's talking about with how quickly this area is developing, more and more cars are going to be going north on Mays Road. And it just makes sense in my mind that where that third lane ends at Sterling to continue that on up through the development in front of Lowe's and on up to the new development on the east side of Mays and connect with that right turn lane only that we're building.
I know, I
It's a lot more
saw,
money, right?
Yeah.
That's way above my.
But see, you're saving us money, right? So there's the money for my right lane.
Yeah, that decision is made much higher than mine.
All right. I'm just saying you found the money for it. Thanks.
It would be a good idea.
You were talking about how those are the PM peak hours.
Yeah.
I can't remember, did you say for the eastbound left turn lane to head north on Mays Road, is it heavier in that left turn lane in the AM or the PM?
It's heavier in the AM.
Okay. Yeah, 'cause I
And
know.
what I think that is people heading and taking.
Yeah, because I take that route every day, and I've noticed it would help. Of course, it's just my own call, but if that were to ever be extended for that left turn lane too, because I notice about half the time I get stuck there not being able to turn on the left turn lane because of the traffic that's going eastbound from there.
So how often you get to actually go on the permissive phase instead of the protective
About
phase?
half of it I can go there.
So if we put in duals there, which
Yeah.
is what the numbers would warrant without any further analysis, if you didn't get the arrow, you're just gonna sit for a whole cycle.
Yeah,
So it's gonna function the same
because I
way
know
with
there's
that.
a median right there that then allows you to take a left. If that would just be taken out like it's doing right there with the westbound left turn lane, would that add into the activation there?
We can definitely do that. That's a good idea.
Any other questions?
You need a motion.
Yeah. Everybody okay?
Yes.
There's a
I'll make a motion.
motion. Okay. Troy and Jill.
Yeah.
Troy, Jill, Nancy, Troy. Okay, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
He has to say,
Thank you. Trevor update.
I have to leave my project.
Yeah, whatever.
Right.
Okay, zoning. Philip.
Two cases.
Thanks, Brian.
Good thing I was last call for like. My last name starts with a
What?
I was just, I said my last name starts with a Z, so I'm glad.
You're always last, right? Yeah.
I have two zoning cases tonight. I don't have a show for you, but you should have gotten staff reports and our sales and exhibits and pictures. That I'll probably be referencing on a couple of them. The first is zone 1903. It's located at Maple and 135th Street. It's actually north on 135th Street, north of Maple. The application to rezone a small strip of ground that back in 2016 a request was made. Currently, it's still single family. The initial zoning request on this lot is to be perfected because it was a rezone, so it's happening. So there is zoning coming, but as right now, technically it's single family. And what basically happened is the tenant in this location, which is Bronze,
need a little bit more space, and so they have to rezone the small strip to limited commercial and take that small strip from parcel 2 and give it to parcel 1. So it's kind of cleaning up the site, giving a little bit more space for Bronze to come in. So that rezone a little small strip from what was already approved in the rezoning in 2016. And someday the rest will plat it, submit the plat, and it'll all be taken care of. So that's piece number 1 on this. Number 2 is also the request to amend the protective overlay that governs the site. Again, that protective overlay was set back in the 2016 case. Technically, it's not governing it, but it will govern the site when the site is platted and moves forward. And that is to eliminate conditions A and C from the protective overlay. Condition A said signs should be limited to 1 monument type sign per frontage on each lot, no taller than 12 feet in height, and a limit to 120 square feet. Before I go any further, let me back up and say that these amendments were only going to apply to parcel 1. Parcels 2 and 3 on the site will still retain the full protective overlay. And then condition C says that no sign shall be allowed on the west and north elevations of the building. So the reason they want to do this is Bronx wants to put in a 25-foot height sign with total square footage of signage of 136 and some change square footage. They also are going to have 1 LED sign, which was going to limit to 50 square feet on the LED sign. So that's part of the amendment of the PO. I did a study in the area of all the signage in along the limit of commercial in the intersection, and 25 feet is only 5 feet higher than any other sign that's the larger sign that's in the area. It's actually been a compromise from Bronx point of view. They were the 35-foot signs, so they've actually come down 10 feet. You can actually see the sign exhibit. Yes, sir.
Real quick, how tall was the new one on May Road?
How tall is it? Like,
We need to sign up the new drawing on May.
smaller than 25 feet.
Right.
Yeah, then why can't we do smaller than 25 feet here?
I will refer to Russ from Boston Company who represents Bronx.
Sorry.
We did discuss that as a planning staff, but he's more knowledgeable from the Bronx point of view. I will say, if you transfer the staff report, I'll hold up the picture so I can see what page I'm going to. They did provide the sign in the digit, Bronx coming out and having the logo on their sign. And their whole point was, though, it's a 25-foot sign, so it's 5 feet taller than the area around there. It's not as obtrusive because it's not like it's a full monument going up. It does taper because of the ice cream cone. And so visually, it's less impactful if 25 feet high than you would have a monument sign over the up. But that's all I'll say about the sign. I'll let Russ with Boston Company talk a bit more about this. That's the sign exhibit with the dimensions that would be the sign at this location. So overall, planning staff is recommending approval subject to the conditions, and like I said, the adjustments to the PO would only apply to parcel 1. The full PO would still apply to parcels 2 and 3 that they develop in the future once all this is rezoned. And Russ can even talk about possible development something like millionaires. This particular parcel is just going to the Bronx. So with that, I can send you questions from a staff perspective. Otherwise, I believe Russ is here to talk on behalf of,
Any questions from the board? Bill? Let the rest talk.
Good evening, Russ Avian, agent for the applicant with Boston Company. I don't really appreciate the asked questions. I don't have great answers to specifically. We talked about this before, so, but no, I think what Ron was looking at for this particular location is most of traffic, according to them, traveling east and west along Maple, with the Riverside Health Clinic and their 20-foot monument style sign, as well as their street landscaping right up against the right of way. They felt that it created visual impairment for a lot of the traffic out in Maple and their 30-foot intersection, as compared to the relatively wide open nature and the direct frontage off of Maze Road. There again, they built their standard sign package of 35 feet, which they're developing in Goddard, for example. This would be a reduction. This is something that past staff review. We've talked with staff here in the past 2 months regarding this particular protective overlay amendment, or I should say, this component of it. As Philip mentioned, you can kind of see that we're asking for two separate things on the application. One is the additional area from 55,000 square feet of LC to 60,000 square feet of LC, as well as this minor amendments to the sign provisions that we quite frankly volunteered a couple of years ago in 2016 to rezone this property to the way it is now, or I should say to the way it's intending by the last one.
Okay,
I get all the questions or very different.
any questions from Russ? Okay, thank you. Do you want to take questions from people regarding that one first? Anyone here like to speak to that case? This case? Hearing no one? Okay. Go ahead.
Are you gonna motion, are you gonna provide action on this one?
You're up. Anybody like to make a motion to approve it?
Before we move, have you had any feedback from residents in the area concerning?
I did have one, phone call from a gentleman who lived in the residential behind, their location. It's right now, nobody feels like there's a subdivision, just behind me, you can see your bronze is going to occupy a parcel of land here.
Mhm.
So there's no, like here, you pretty much say bronze is coming, like, okay. That kind of makes a lot of the conversation, but they didn't have any concerns.
Okay.
That was the only phone call we received several months ago. So this was a deferred item, so it's a little behind the schedule, but yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? Anyone like to make a motion? Increase the square footage of the sign and the height of the sign.
Got two motions.
And the rezoning from single family.
That's the motion. So,
Zoning and sign
zoning and sign.
overlays. Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Nancy seconds. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? One opposed. Huh?
I don't,
You're saying-
I'm opposing to.
You're opposing also? Okay, two opposing. Everybody else says yes? Okay, thank you. Okay,
My funding agenda is zoning 1910. This property is located north on Tower Road, north of Maple. Issue has a case history which I will talk about in a little bit as well. The request on this one is also a rezoning from neighborhood retail to limited commercial, with intended use of a small animal veterinary clinic. This would be the size of house of pets. There's no penalty involved, there's no outdoor run, it's all, there's a little bit of boring, animals to spend the night, but nothing outside. The subject property is west of Tyler Road, north of Maple, as I mentioned, about 500 or so feet north, about a quarter mile north of West Maple. As part of the case history with this, in 2016, the property was looking to be rezoned into commercial with some comments from the residents during the planning commission meeting. They worked with the applicant to settle on neighborhood retail zoning with protective overlay. So part of this current application is also amending the protective overlay because what the protective overlay states, and as a reminder, protective overlays are just extra rules that are put on in addition to the zoning, is that all the uses on the lot, on the parcel that have to be subject to neighborhood retail. So not only is it zone neighborhood retail, but the predictive overlay also states it has to be subject to neighborhood retail, and it has several exceptions or limitations of reducing density and making sure there's not high density development and stuff like that. So the applicants were looking to amend item number 1 and item number 9. The protective overlay, item number 1, they just want to ensure that they can have a sign on the building that faces Tyler. Technically, item 1 says you can't have a sign that faces residential, for all that would include all sides of the building. So they figured if we have one that faces Tyler, technically there's residential on the east side of Tyler, but Tyler serves as a buffer. You know, it's not like they're putting it on the north side and having it face directly at the house. So that's item number 1. Item number 9, this is where it gets a little bit confusing, so bear with me. We're going to keep the language as it is to say all uses are only allowed as stated for neighborhood retail. We're just adding animal care limited as a permitted use. That's where the rezoning comes in, because animal care limited is not allowed in the neighborhood retail zoning, but it is in limited commercial. So effectively, the zoning is staying the same. Even though it says limited commercial, we're just allowing one more use. So all the other uses in limited commercial are prohibited. If they're not allowed in neighborhood retail, they're not going to be allowed on the site except for the animal care. So we're basically trying to be very cognizant of the neighbors who have significant issue with the limited commercial zoning 3 years ago, and having that have a wide open door to whatever could be done with limited commercial use on the site. So basically retaining the neighborhood retail zoning, even though on the map it will say limited commercial, we're just allowing one more use, and you have to rezone the property in order to do that. So the protective overlay is still governing and restricting a lot on the site. We're just allowing one more use in there for this vet clinic. So that's what the amendment to number 9 is, and a lot more words than what it says, but it takes a little bit of explaining to do that. So, like I said, in 2016, I believe there are several, I have received several phone calls from individuals who did speak on the case back in 2016, and I'm sure they'll want to address you this evening, so I won't speak for them. There was a fair amount of opposition to the limited commercial, and that's what the neighborhood retail came in. Staff recommendation after we have reviewed it, with the careful language of the protective overlay, we need to approve based on those conditions. Just allowing one additional use into the protective overlay, as well as allowing a sign on the east elevation of the building. I know the applicant is here, and she can speak on the project as well, and with that, I can stand for any staff questions.
Any questions?
You mentioned that they're not going to have boarding only for certain, if they have to keep an animal overnight.
Correct.
Which would be inside.
Correct.
Well, let's just say that they don't want to change and start having a daycare and having a dog outside. How can they?
That's not, by definition, as animal care limited, that's not a permitted use. That would be a kennel and a dog daycare, which is not an animal care facility. So with the protective overlay stating specifically animal care limited, and by that defining the code, moving to a dog daycare is not allowed. They would have to resubmit another zoning application in order to do that.
Jill, that's a good question. Why don't you have the doctor answer that?
You will. Okay, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Dr. Moore. This is my sister, Dr. Moore. We actually practice at Herndon Veterinary Clinic right around the corner. We purchased the clinic 2 years ago in 2017. And changed the name to Sister Veterinary Clinic because we are sisters. We have been, the Herndon Veterinary Clinic was actually established in 1977 by Mike Herndon, and he sold it back in 2008 to Johnny Bruner. And we have been practicing there literally on the west side of Dawson Shake for the last 10 years. There isn't a noise issue. At this time, we don't have, I would say, residential right up next to us, but our pets are kept indoors and they're only taken out on leashes. There is not an outside facility for them to be in. There will not be actually outdoor runs in the city of Wichita, but the boarding facility or with any kind of daycare, it's not permitted outside of the city limits. It's allowed highly loads of popular because they do have the indoor-outdoor facilities because they're outside the city limits. We would not be able to have anything like that. Even if we did have dogs stay with us, the only time they would go out, it's on a leash with a staff member, and then drop back in as soon as they're done unless they go on a short walk.
Did you say you're with Herndon?
We are Sisters Veterinary Clinic doing business as Herndon Veterinary Clinic.
So you're gonna move to this?
Right, we're
Okay,
the
you're not gonna
facility,
keep,
we're not going to, is correct.
Thank you.
The reason we're moving is because right now it was a house that was built in the 1940s and converted in the 70s. And I think it's about 1,400 square feet. And we have maximized that space to its fullest potential. We have maximized our parking to its fullest potential, and we are running out of space.
You don't have enough parking now.
We
You
do
park
not-
in the other.
Correct, our staff.
Yeah.
Fortunately, Harborwell has allowed us to use their parking lot to work there for our staff.
Can you tell us a little about which one of the,
Um,
where you're building?
Yeah, well, we're looking to build, probably some type of brick face, but probably not fully brick face, probably some siding. It was mentioned in the overlay, we're not doing 2 stories, it would be a single story facility. There would be parking, for clients in the front and then staff mostly in the back. There is a sewer line that runs right down the middle of the property that we have to be conscious of. But it would just be a 1-story, potentially we're looking at about 5,000 square foot facility.
There's other plans for this is a big lot.
We do not at this time. Our primary focus right now is we need more space as a veterinary clinic. Whether that expands into a larger clinic in the future, we don't know. We would love to see that happen, but we don't know for sure.
Any questions from the board? Then we'll go to questions after too. Anybody else have any questions, like to speak?
Yeah. So can you have a
Yeah.
area that dog that you would run a kennel? I'm sorry, I don't want to run in. I don't want to take these out where in the future, we look at having a kennel inside.
We actually, in the facility that we have now, we have indoor runs. We have kennels that pets stay in for, boarding, for overnight care. Sometimes they are hospital-based for medical treatment, other times they're there because an owner's on vacation and they need a safe place for their pet, and that's what we provide. And again, those pets only go outside on a leash with a staff member, and they're never left outside. Any type of waste product that's produced is picked up, at a minimum 3 times a day into the yard. So we really want to reduce any kind of odor or noise. Right.
Can we get your name and address, please?
One,
Yeah. Yeah.
Ellen, Ryan, 150 South Byron. I'm Shirley Cooper. We live adjacent to that property at 145 South Byron.
Just a little.
Just a little bit of this road. You're gonna have dogs staying in there, but they're sometimes too many dog parks. What side of the building is that? It's in the south or the north side?
Most likely at this time, based on the preliminary design that we have, they're on the south side of the facility. It doesn't, I cannot tell you that that won't change, but at this point, that's on the south side. Mostly because our offices are set on the north side. Right now, our office is right next to the kennel facility, and in the day, it's loud. Because we're in an inside, it's loud because it's a house built in the 1940s. The insulation is pretty much gone. There's only a flat house between the walls, and that's about it. But stepping outside, volume is minimal. The way that we plan to insulate the facility, it would be very, very difficult to hear any noise outside of the facility.
Any other?
8833 Douglas. Craig Hose. 137 foot straight north. Fencing.
Yes.
Can we ask for small privacy fencing?
8 foot,
8 foot.
8 foot fence.
Yeah, on steel posts and all.
Yes.
But on that, even though we can't ask you for steel posts, I understand. Drainage issues. If we know that water runs off that line now, it is still running today and creating everything on that going north. 2,000 past is probably off on that line. Do you have a drainage plan?
Stan did have some stuff on that for architect. He does have, he has looked at the drainage. Part of that is honestly because that used to be an old orchard. parks on that years and years ago, and I was told that was an old orchard that they converted into that, company that they have. And at that time, when it was converted, there weren't any of the regulations from runoff. And so I can tell you on Herndon, where we're at on Maple, we have a huge, when it rains, we have a pond in our backyard until it rains, south into the little drainage ditch that's there.
I can speak that anytime a site is redeveloped and has a change occupancy like this, every site is responsible for managing the stormwater, especially going from a vacant lot to a paved surface. They're only allowed to discharge off the site or currently discharge from the site. Any new runoff that comes on the site per city policy. So a drainage plan will have to be approved before they can do permits.
One other question about future improvement of highway. Last time we went through this, the meeting following us, they decided at Second Street to widen the street. And it was suggested that there were no improvements to Tyler. So immediately after that, we had to buy additional setback property from people along Tyler. It cost more money. Limited budgets. Setbacks, I know there's a sewer running right through the middle of it. It is a commercial. And everything south of you is already commercial. And that is retail. So, Quick Trip's on the other corner. The street is going to become wider in the next 10 years, I would believe.
Quick Trip's bought the Morris property to the north there. They're going to build a new store sometime.
We had to buy some property north.
They've already got it. Quick Trip,
Yes.
they already own two
They
more
own
lots.
property north of that.
They do.
But I'm up at Second Street where we had to buy more of the, but we didn't set back.
Mhm.
We had to buy more easement in order to allow for the widening of the turn.
Mhm.
And as Tyler is improving, what do we do about setbacks? Do we leave them alone?
That's what they along, because that's a plotting issue, and this is a plotted lot, so they have already given their right of way and their setback. So in the future,
No, it'd be replatted, so now we have.
it's being rezoned.
It's being done.
Rezoned, not replatted.
There's no side on it. There is a plat.
It's plotted, it's not for
It's-
Yeah.
I think it's fine.
Any other questions? Anyone?
Well, I guess are we standing up here too, or?
Yeah, you want to? Go ahead.
Well, yeah, I love it.
Oh, go ahead.
So-
Okay, you can sit down.
You know, it's been mentioned a
No,
little bit.
Wait. Name and address.
Larry Ryan.
Yeah.
150 South Byron, basically right behind this property. It's been mentioned a little bit. This thing barely squeaked through the first time. There's a lot of overlays and changes in the mountain. You know, the veterinary clinic, I really don't think I have a problem with what I'm hearing. Noise is a huge concern with me with the veterinary clinic. I don't want to be back 2 years from now, we're sitting here talking, well, we'd like to make a playground out back or something, you know. I think what concerns me about throwing the light commercial flag over this whole piece of ground, pretty good piece of ground, about an acre and a half. We'll be here in 2 years from now. I'm not sure that I'm not sure whether they'll keep all the ground and decide to sell some of it off. But someone said, well, we want to, you know, there's still room left and we want to do something else. And we want to do the light commercial. I really don't mind squeaking to this. See, you know, something's going to be built there. And this is maybe as good as it's going to get. But it seems like a lot of promises are made at the podium and then 2 years later we're back asking for more. That's my biggest concern. I think. It sounds, you know, when I first got the letter, I thought, oh my God, man, dog. It sounds like they're going to be inside, so if I don't hear them, I'm fine. But I just hate to be back here in 2 years now, squeaking the use up on this just a little bit.
Right now, the only use would be a veterinary clinic.
Right.
Let's limit to commercial, like commercial.
Correct, or any use that's allowed in retail.
Okay.
In terms of limited commercial, like uses are in limited commercial that are limited, this would be
Only one. Okay.
Any limited commercial.
Okay.
Like I said, that's my biggest concern, but back in a couple of years, I'm very,
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else like to speak? Okay, we have a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Motion and a second to approve it. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thanks everyone for coming out. And with that, I think we're to the end of our agenda, so we'll have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you.